Welcome to Victoria's Stars. I'm Vicktoria Schneps, and I'm the publisher of the Home Reporter, the Brooklyn Spectator, and the Spectator News. I'm delighted tonight to be introducing to you some of the great people that make the Brooklyn Public Library the best place to be and go to. First, I want to introduce Lexi Mayers. Lexi is actually the Chief Development Officer of the library, and Dana Elmquist, who is actually in charge of corporate giving and development as well. So we are so glad to have you here. Having grown up in Brooklyn, I know that my favorite place was the library, and I made believe I was a librarian when I was little. I'd have my whole catalog of index cards, and I had my books all lined up. But things are different today. The library isn't just about giving out books, is it?
It's true. It's the library is so much more than giving out books today. Our librarians are providing information about job resources, adult literacy, workforce development. So we're trying to keep pace with the changing needs of our borough, and we're doing much more than providing books, although we're still providing books to thousands and thousands of Brooklynites every year.
Now, am I correct that the library card is free?
The library card is free.
How does someone get a library card? Dana?
All you need is a bill, a utility bill, anything to show proof of address, a state-issued ID that says that you live in Brooklyn, and we'll happily issue you a card.
Well, I've got to become a card-carrying member myself.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Oh, wait a second. I could steal. Josh lives, my son lives in Williamsburg, so that works. But I know that the library has become more of a community center that, in addition to its wonderful services as a hardcover library book place. Tell me about some of the community services besides, this is a wonderful thing that if I'm looking for a job and I don't know how to write my resume, you're telling me that a librarian can actually help me do that?
That's actually one of the #1 requests for information that our librarians get is help with finding a job. Also setting up an email address and other kinds of digital literacy. So our librarians provide information about a whole variety of items. And we also are doing lots of programming around early literacy for parents with young children. We're doing teen programs. We have lots of cultural programs.
What's the favorite? What's the most attended cultural program?
Oh gosh, we have such great cultural programs. We have wonderful authors. In a couple weeks we have a collaborative program with Congregation Beth Elohim, which is a Park Slope congregation, to have Malcolm Gladwell come do a reading in early December. We had Colin McCann a couple weeks ago, or just about a week ago. So we have really wonderful writers, but we also have music performances. We have film series. What are some
you mean I can go see a movie at the library?
You can see a movie at the
Absolutely,
library.
documentary films, and some of our Russian programming is actually always oversubscribed.
Now, I know you've got 60 branches throughout the borough. So are each of the branches, in terms of even their staffing, reflective of that community? When we're in Sunset Park, we've got a polyglot between the Chinese, the Hispanics, and then there's the Caucasians and the people coming in.
That's a really great point, and it's definitely true. Each of our 60 branches is very reflective of the neighborhood and community it's in, both from the staff and from the patrons. And we do a lot of lending of materials and programs in many languages. Dana mentioned Russian programming. Yeah. We do Chinese programming, Spanish language programming. That's a big part of what we do.
Okay.
And that diversity is reflected in the collection as well.
Well, what is happening in the world of books because of the e-books, the Kindles? How are you able to keep up with that, and what's the challenge there?
Well, we have an ebook collection, and you can borrow ebooks and have them directly downloaded onto your device, and then they disappear after 2 weeks, after your 2-week lending period. So we're doing more and more circulation of ebooks. At the same time, we still have a huge, book collection of regular books, DVDs, and other kinds of materials. So, we're seeing there are a lot of people who really want to use the ebooks, and we want to make more and more of that available. But there are still plenty of people in the borough who don't have devices that still come into our branches, reserve books that they want, and take out actual regular reading material.
So they bring in the New York Times bestsellers list and say, okay, I want this one.
Exactly. You can go online from your home, actually, and reserve the books that you want, and they will be delivered to your local branch.
Oh, that's neat.
Really, it's really great program. Yeah.
So in terms of the technical world, so the computers that are there, I mean, people can actually have training? There are classes that train you how to use, because I mean, I bought a training card. I never got to use it on my Apple because I didn't know how to use the Apple with all its tricks and bells and whistles. Are you doing the PCs only or both?
We actually train in both. We have a whole continuum of technology literacy, from just learning how to use the basic computer skills like word processing and getting an email account, all the way up into the creative programs like Photoshop and some of the more high-level technical skills. We try to serve a huge array of different audiences, which reflects the borough.
So in terms of even the getting a degree, a GED, is that something that you can do at the library?
We do a lot of high school equivalency exam training and classes. And we recently, about a little less than a year ago, launched our strategic plan for the library, which is a roadmap for the next 5 years. And a lot of what we're focusing on is the way in which the library is an educational resource with regard to digital literacy, but also you know, workforce development and adult learning, and that's a lot of what we're doing.
Well, you know, for me, growing up in Brooklyn, the Grand Army Plaza and the library was such a majestic place. It's almost a little intimidating. Is the main branch used as a regular library like all the others, or is there something unique that you do in that majestic building?
Well, we have wonderful spaces, and in fact, one of the newest spaces that we opened that's really exciting is the Shelby White and Leon Levy Information Commons in the Central Library, which is a workspace and digital learning space. It's very new in libraries in general, and for us in Brooklyn. Provides group work areas so that small groups that are working on incubating ideas, growing businesses, can sign up online to reserve a meeting room. So that's something that's in a central library that's getting a lot of usage.
Interesting.
And then the Central Library is one of our biggest circulating branches, so people still use it just to take out materials.
So where do you park? Do you have a parking lot? I see the front gate and the front steps. I say, oh my.
There's parking around there.
I know people take the subway, and it's a great, because I think there's a subway stop
yeah,
right there.
we're right near the 2-3 stop.
I mean, I got to be prejudiced and say, to me, that's my favorite branch of all of them. But is there hopes and plans for any additional branches being opened?
Well, we have 60 branches, and so we're actually within a half mile of every other place in Brooklyn. So you're always within walking distance of a branch library. So we don't have any plans right now to open additional branches. We just last year opened the first totally new branch from the ground up that had been opened in about 20 years in the Kensington neighborhood. And that was really exciting for us because it gave us a way to really build a 21st century library with all the kinds of spaces that people want now to be able to do group work and, you know, the kinds of things they want to do digitally. So that was really exciting for us.
Well, I think, you know, in terms of the 21st century, bringing the library into the 21st century, you mentioned there the Carnegie libraries. Are those libraries that were funded at the beginning of the century, or not this century, the last century,
yeah,
right?
Good point. Yes, exactly. So, yes, we have, I think, about 15 of the Carnegie branches that were built with Andrew Carnegie's money, beautiful branches. You know, some of them, it is hard to sort of work with those now in terms of how people are now using libraries. So at the time those were built, it was very much like you came in, you got your book, you asked the librarian to help you find your book, and then you took it out and you left and you read it on your own.
Do they still have the system with the cards?
We don't have a card catalog system anymore, actually. It's all computerized, yes. But you're not the first person to ask that. I think people have fond memories of those card catalogs.
You know,
exactly.
And being able to go like this.
Exactly, and find the books that they didn't think that you would find, exactly. So, but the Carnegie branches are beautiful. One of the Carnegie branches that we just renovated is in Park Slope. And that also was a big renovation. Again, top to bottom, it looks so beautiful because it's really a spectacular turn-of-the-century architectural gem, and that opened last fall.
Okay. So, and you know, one of the things that I think is glorious about the library is all this is free. But how does it get funded? How does it make it happen? And I know you guys are living and breathing, making sure you got the resources to keep that library going and buzzing and being a real integral part of the community. What kind of things do you do to raise the money you must raise, and how can people help?
Well, first off, we should say that 70% of the money actually comes from a city allocation, and we're left to raise the rest.
And I'm hoping that in this new administration, since our new mayor is from Brooklyn, Park Slope, your neighbor, we're going to be given a bigger share. But until then.
We're very optimistic, yeah. So the other big chunks are competitive government grants, foundations, and corporate development.
Who's been very good to you? Can you pick one that's been very kind to the library?
Well,
or a few?
In my arena in the last year, we've been, a lot of corporations felt that giving to the branches that were affected by Hurricane Sandy was a priority. AIG, American International Group, gave us $300,000 towards our rebuilding efforts.
Oh, that's good.
And there have been some other very, very generous contributions. So we try to, we think of corporate development as a growth area, and Lexi can speak further to this, but it's in many ways event-driven, and we have borough-wide events, we have galas, we have all these different ways to kind of
like every organization,
funders, and let people know that we are a nonprofit and that every grant counts. I remember Lexi relaying a story when I first joined the library about a year ago, saying I can't remember how many letters I signed back to people for $10 pledges, and they get a personalized thank you letter from us, and that's really the bread and butter. I mean, we talk
that's how Obama got elected.
We talk about
right?
these big gifts, but it's the little ones that count just as much. So really, every contribution adds up.
And I think, as Dana said, getting the word out. I think a lot of people don't realize that the library, the Brooklyn Public Library, is a nonprofit. They think it's just a city agency. So while we do get money from the city, you know, our programs, our collections, just so many of our services are underwritten by private grants, both from individuals, corporations, foundations. So some of it is raising awareness that, you know, no, we need your gift and we need your support.
Well, I would wonder how the legacy kind of bequests have been growing. Is that something that would be a very generous thing for someone planning their will and planning to be able to leave money to the library?
I think, you know, we have definitely seen that. We've been very, very honored to have gotten some bequests from people who grew up going to the library and felt like it was a really important part of their lives and sometimes an important part of their success, and made an effort to include us in their estate planning, and that is something that we hope to do more of.
Well, I think, you know, whichever way we can raise the visibility of the need, I think, you know, the idea of children feeling that this is also, tell me if I'm wrong, a safe haven for them after school. Because that's, you know, to me, that's what my kids used to do. There was a library right near the elementary school, and they can go over right from school and do their homework. Is that still going on?
That's exactly right. I mean, you come to our branch libraries after 3:30, and they are packed with kids that are doing their homework, that are doing activities, because we have a lot of activities. We do gaming with kids. We do writing programs with kids. And so precisely for that period of time before they go home and have dinner, but after school, that's a lot of what's going on in the libraries.
You know, it's truly a safe haven for parents, you know, who are working. And with the after-school programming, in some cases we've heard some beacon programs not getting refunded. But you've become more of a community center. I mean, I know it's called a library, but it'd be interesting to me, you know, how that balance between being a community service in activities compared to the actual borrowing of books. Have you ever figured out what percentage of people use you for that?
I think what you're saying is exactly right. More and more we're being used as a community center while we're still lending tremendous numbers of materials. But I think, you know, to be a civic institution and to have the kinds of public spaces that we have with supportive staff is, you know, increasingly rare. So that's definitely, I think, one of the ways in which we're growing.
Well, and on a personal note, I know you have 2 children. And I wonder, as a woman in business, how have you been able to balance your life to work and have such an important job at the library and still have your family going full blast?
Well, I mean, I'm very fortunate in that I live quite close to where I work, so that's one thing that's great. I think what's nice for me is that I have a job that's so easily understandable to my 5-year-old and my 9-year-old. You know, mommy works in a library, like what could be easier for them to understand, and I think they feel some pride in that because they're big library goers. But you know, it's always a challenge, I think, trying to do as much as you can, both as a mom and doing your job. But I feel very privileged to be working at the library and helping to raise resources for the library.
Well, I think you feel every morning you wake up, you're doing something special, right?
Exactly.
So that really is I think, a big part of it. How did you come to the library? You came from another world, didn't you, in terms of you coming here just for this first year?
I came from museum fundraising,
Right.
Which was an incredible challenge. But I really value what the library does for all of the different parts of the borough that we interact with, and the fact that we provide services that literally no one else provides. We provide services for people that are sometimes desperately in need of them. And I wanted to raise money for an organization that's really on this kind of cutting edge of bridging the gap between last century's civic institutions and this century's civic institutions. And Lexi alluded to some of these renovations that were going on, and really our major asset is these 1 million square feet that we have in the borough. But the problem with some of those 1 million square feet is that they're not really configured to deliver the programs and services that our patrons increasingly demand. And so we're doing it case by case by case as we sort of make the architecture into optimal program delivery space. And that's something that, you know, as in the next couple of years, I'd really like to see more of and raise money for. And I think there's a lot of people that could see tremendous value in it.
What happens with the naming rights? So how does, I noticed you said something about one of the libraries is named in the main branch. Is that something that's been a successful way to raise money?
Well, we do have naming opportunities. Generally they're inside a branch. We have rooms named, or the youth and family wing sometimes have naming opportunities. Our branches tend to be named for the neighborhood in which they are, and I think people really feel connected to their neighborhood branch. You know, I mentioned the Kensington branch, Cortelyou, Coney Island, Garrettson Beach. These all are the names of branches as well as the names of the communities that they're in. So I think we're treading lightly on doing anything to that.
Right. Well, you know, I know that the Queens Public Library is going to be having a branch in the Queens Museum. Have you done any kind of outreach where you have a actual library in another facility that's not your own library?
Well, we have talked to partners about that possibility, and we do some capsule library collections that can travel sometimes to centers for older Brooklynites, but we haven't yet put a library inside another institution.
We're actually working on a program with some of the state prison facilities in the 5 boroughs, because we think of it integral to the sort of rehabilitation part of being incarcerated, that there are good collections in these prison facilities, and we're thinking of the library as a potential bridge between the time incarcerated and then post-incarceration, and sort of
that's an unusual, interesting program.
On a plan and perhaps even going back to school.
And then sort of the other direction, the other side of that, is we do have a partnership with an organization called Spaceworks to put artist studios and rehearsal space in some of the unused space in some of our libraries, because we do have some libraries that have spaces. Again, originally when the library was built, we were doing a lot of book processing there that now we're not doing quite as much of because of new technology. So we have some spaces that now are being used in Red Hook, for example. We're turning some of our space into dance studios. So
wow.
Yeah,
really
that'll
cool
be something
program
to
look forward.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So how do people learn about the different programs that you actually are offering like this?
Go to our website. We have a calendar of events. We also have and when you're on our website.
Wait a second, give us the website.
Oh, yes, good point. www.brooklynpubliclibrary.org.
That's complicated, okay.
It's long, but straightforward.
Well, yes.
And when you're on our website, you can sign up for our e-news. So we have a twice monthly e-news where we're really featuring a lot of the events and programs that we're doing.
So how do you capture people's emails?
Well, they sign up. Typically, they opt in to our monthly email.
Okay, so people can do that. So they would go to a branch and then they would sign up for an email.
Or you can sign up online.
I know we've just come up on the anniversary of Sandy, and sometimes we don't realize it's only 1 year ago that there was such devastation. My friend lives in Gerritsen Beach, and I could picture how he explained to me as his mom lived in the lower level, and how when he came to her, the water was up to her neck as he carried her out of the house. And the devastation was so huge in that part of the world. And then today I went to visit the River Cafe, my favorite in the whole world restaurant, to see what was happening there, because Buzzy, who owns the restaurant, had been ruined at the Water Club and then at the River Cafe and even the Liberty Warehouse in Red Hook. So I went to the River Cafe, and his kitchen is still not totally complete. He just does little parties in the garden room. So everybody's been so affected. How was the library affected, and how did you recover?
Well, we're really delighted to say that all the impacted branches have now reopened. So we had 6 branches that had felt the effects of Hurricane Sandy, some less so, some all the way to Coney Island that was really under 6 feet of water. All the collections were basically ruined.
Were you near Emmons Avenue, or where were you? Where's that branch in Coney Island?
That branch is on...
Because I mean, even Coney Island
yeah.
Hospital, I couldn't believe that they could, and they're still also in jeopardy in terms of not being totally back on track.
Yeah, but we're very fortunate in that we were able to raise the funds that we needed to be able to open it up again, and also open it up even better than it was before, with new technology and new collections, and a really beautiful space that includes a photo mural of Coney Island, in the 50s. Some of the boardwalk was used in the ceiling of the rebuilt branch. So that's really great where that can happen. I think the community is really thrilled, and we're thrilled to be able to serve the community again.
Well, I think people don't know how much they miss something until they don't have it. And I think that was a good example, especially in Coney Island, where people really, it was a haven.
Yep, there's no question. That community wanted its library back open, and they were very patient, but I think they're happy that we took the time that we did to really open it up beautifully and to really make it a spectacular, and as I said, a better library than it was before.
Well, that's the story of life. There's a good side and then there's the bad side, but to every bad story there is a good. And that probably is the good part, that you were able to renovate it and do what needed to be done to make it a truly 21st century branch.
Exactly.
What about down in Red Hook? Because I know that was an area that was also totally destroyed in blocks and blocks.
Yeah, our Red Hook and Gerritsen branches sustained serious damage. Coney and Gerritsen were damaged the most, but Red Hook took a major hit, as did the rest of the Red Hook community. That was one of the ones that was brought back online over the summer, and actually we just finished reopening Gerritsen and Coney in the last month or so. And I can remember we were at the Coney opening, and people were just stopping by on the sidewalk and thanking us for opening the library. They would say, "Is it finally open? Is it really open?" And that was really warming to see.
One of the issues with is it really open for lots of people is the very frustration of having it not open 7 days a week. And I know it's a budget issue, but what are the days that you're able to operate? Have you been able to adjust, or is there maybe a petition drive we can organize to have the libraries open 7 days a week?
Well, we always like people to advocate on behalf of libraries and to help increase the funding that might make it possible for us to open as many hours as possible. We try, most of our branches are open on Saturdays, and that actually wasn't always the case. And we're trying. We would love to be open as many hours as possible. So definitely, people should be writing to their elected officials just to let them know how much they support the library and how much they use and need the library.
Yeah, I mean, it's 7 days a week, and it's also evenings, because people come from work and they need the services in the evenings, or they need the services early in the morning. So really, I just underscore that. Yeah, it's evenings and weekends, and the more, the better. Well,
I think that knowing that it's a community center is another reason that the funding has to come back. And it seems to me that Sunday is a great family day, but there's, the library can be a haven for families. I use that word haven a lot because to me that's what I always thought of when I was a kid, as a place to go to. I don't know if they still have it, where if you feel you're being followed or a child's in danger, they know they can go into a library and be protected. And I was so impressed that you mentioned about the library is like within a mile or within walking distance, half a mile.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the barometer for when you choose to have a library branch, or you've had them, but?
Yeah, I think when they were developing the network of libraries, they were definitely looking at being able to be as accessible as possible to as many people as possible, and so we're very lucky to have that kind of breadth and over the borough.
Well, I know that our time is coming to a close, but I just need everyone to know that support your public library. Support it and make sure that you're using it, and go get a library card. It's free. Lexi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
I appreciate it. My pleasure, Dana. It's really been a wonderful relationship getting to know you better at the library, and we hope to have lots more stories about the library and the great things you're doing in every neighborhood. So thank you all for being with us.